I think I've always been in love with books. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I feel like I was born with that gene. I think the moment I realized I had a problem was when I was 4 years old and I was shopping with my mom at Roger Wilco grocery store. And I asked her to buy me a copy of a book called My Little Pony. And she said no. And then driving home, when she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw me in the back seat reading the book. So it was my first shoplifting experience, but obviously a little bit of a slippery slope into a world of book selling, and eventually I found my way on this path. But at the time, she made me go back and apologize to the manager and return the book. So I fell in love specifically with that book, but I think I've always just been in love with books. Today we are at Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena, California. We are in the main store on the main floor of the not original building. The original building was down the street from here. But this particular space has been around since the 40s, and then 20 years ago, we doubled the size. So this is the largest Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena. The history of Vroman's in Pasadena is this incredibly wonderful story. It's a love story. It starts in Illinois with a man named Adam Clark Vroman, and he was born in Illinois. He worked in the railroads there, and he was a bibliophile. He had a book collection, he loved reading. It was a huge part of his life. And he fell in love with a woman named Esther, and sadly, this is where the story turns sad, so be forewarned, she contracted tuberculosis, and the two of them decided they should move west to get to warmer weather. So they did this grand journey to the West Coast and ended up in Pasadena, California, which it's amazing to think back to that time because it's 1893 at this point, and there are 7,000 people living in Pasadena, which is kind of amazing when you think about Pasadena Rose Bowl holds 90,000 people, so that gives you an idea of scale. But they arrive in Pasadena and they start their life here, and sadly Esther passes away. And he's at this pivotal point in his life where he has to make a decision. Does he go back to Illinois or does he stay here in Pasadena? And at this point, he's now fallen in love with the city of Pasadena, and he sees this as a tremendous opportunity and decides to open a bookstore here in the community. He sells his beloved book collection to raise the capital to open the store, and that's how he got started. Vroman's is such a unique bookstore, and part of that I think is just the fact that we've been around so long. Just the fact that we've been able to survive for 125 years through difficult times tells you a lot about the store, and I think it very much shapes the culture of the store. And part of that is that you have customers who were part of the history of their families. We have customers who shop with us who have been shopping with us since they were 5 years old. I always tell the story of Olive Kemp, who is one of our customers who is in her 90s now, and she had shopped here since she was 5 years old. I mean, where do you have continuity like that in your life anymore? So to be part of the fabric of people's lives in that way, I think is such a special thing, and in many ways makes the store really unique. One of the things that we offer here, we print wedding invitations in our pen and stationery department. So we have brides who come in, and we did their mother's invitations and we did their grandmother's invitations. So it's kind of incredible to have that experience and have that continuity and have that longevity. So that's a huge part, I think, of what makes Vroman's unique. I think other things are our event series. So we're here on the second floor in our event space, and we do about 1,000 events a year. It's an incredibly robust event series, and the events range from author signings to children's programming, writing workshops, craft events. All kinds of different things go on here at the store in this space. The author events, there's a wide range of authors who have appeared here over the years, and it's everyone from literary figures like Salman Rushdie and Roxane Gay and Joan Didion to government and political officials, President Bill Clinton, President Jimmy Carter, we've had Hillary Clinton, we've had Laura Bush. It's just a long list of wonderful writers. So contrary to what I think is popular belief about independent bookstores, we are experiencing a little bit of a renaissance right now. I think the general assumption would be in the face of Amazon that the independent bookstores would really be struggling, and certainly we've seen Borders disappear in recent years and Barnes & Noble struggling, but the independent bookstore market has actually been really thriving the last few years. which has been unexpected and obviously a very pleasant surprise for people like us here at Vromans. I think there are many reasons for that. I think I have my own theories about people's need for connection and community in a digital world. We all have lots of ways that we interact with each other online and through social media, but there are fewer and fewer opportunities to connect with like-minded people in environments that you can share an experience in. And I think that's something that independent bookstores particularly are offering people. I mean, I think back to when I was a kid, and in that small town, it was the church, right? I mean, that's where people gathered. You were with people who shared your values. That's where you connected and communicated. Out in the world now, especially with urbanization and people moving into cities and not living in those environments, people are hungry for that. They're searching for it at places like Starbucks or coffee shops, right? But there's something about bookstores that's very unique and special, because if you interact with people in a bookstore, you really get to know them. If you're browsing next to someone and they choose a book that you read and you loved, that's an icebreaker, and that's an instant connection on a much deeper level than standing next to someone and ordering a latte at the same time. So I think that's partly what we're experiencing. That's my theory, that people are just needing that community and connection, and independent bookstores serve that purpose. That's really part of the legacy that Mr. Vroman left us with. That I think back to 1894 when he started the store, and he was really thinking of how to create community. He was a philanthropist. He supported local charities, helped start the Southwest Museum, helped support the Pasadena Library. There's even a story where he loaned money to a competitor so they could start their own bookstore. And I think that speaks to his understanding of how important community is, and we continue that tradition today. So the different ways that we're supporting that sense of community are certainly our event series, because it brings thousands and thousands of people together in our event space over the course of a year, every year. We have a partnership with an independent coffee shop downstairs. So that's another place that becomes a gathering space where people come together, and we get to have this great partnership with another great independent business. So I think independent bookstores offer that kind of diversity and that variety and an experience that's so unique and entrenched in that community. I mean, I think about Vromans, and Vromans is a Pasadena institution. It's not that the store could be in another city and it would be the same experience, because so much of what shapes us are the people who have shopped here for generations, and our local author section that's specific to Pasadena, and our California Pasadena Pride section, and the things we sell to support the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl, which is specific to our community. I mean, I could go on and on. So I think there's something really special about that, and that people really respond to it and want to be part of it. We're here in our kids section on the second floor, and this is one of my favorite sections. I love this section. It's just magical. I mean, you can see it's full of color and tons of books, and my incredibly passionate and knowledgeable staff of children's booksellers have staff pick cards on everything, telling you about all the books that they love, that they've read. We have a story time area. We have a fairy door. You might meet the fairy while you're here. There's a giant mural on one wall, kites hanging from the ceiling. It's just this colorful wonderland, and instantly feels magical when you arrive in this space. I have so many kids tell me that this is their favorite place. And then I have so many adults who I find wandering over here who tell me they were having a bad day and they just came here because it was a special treat to themselves to be back in this environment. So I kind of love that about this space. I kind of have a dream job, let's be honest. I spend every day of my life in a bookstore. It's pretty great. Especially for a kid who grew up reading and with stacks of books everywhere. So this is pretty fantastic for me to be here at all, doing anything. My favorite part, when I drill it down to the actual essence, is just putting the right book in someone's hand and knowing that if you hand them that book at the right time, it could change their life. And that is a magical thing to get to be part of. And there's so many times where I help somebody find a book, and in that exchange, they suddenly open up, and it seems like they were just looking for a book, but suddenly you recognize that there's a whole story behind what brought them in that day and why they're looking for that particular book, whether it be something that's instructional, where they're trying to help someone and they're looking for a book in the psychology section, and they're compelled to read it so that they can be of service to someone in their life, Or the other end of the spectrum, someone comes in and asks for a book that will make them laugh, and it seems like an easy request, and then they end up sharing some experience they're going through where they really do need to laugh, and they've come to you to be of help in not just giving them a book to read, but in offering them solace and humor and something to get through their day. So it's a really powerful thing. I call it retail that transcends. It's this whole other level that you get to experience with people. This is very, very unique, and it's one of the things that made me fall in love with book selling and being in a store like Vroman's, where I get to do so much of that. I think the other favorite part of my job is, again, I'm a reader. I read all the time, so getting to be in a place where authors are showing up all the time, it's like meeting rock stars every day of my life. They are my rock stars. The authors are my rock stars. So to be able to have access to them and get to talk to some of my heroes and be in a place where that can just happen any normal day, walking from my office to another part of the store, is very special and something that's very meaningful to me. Why should people shop in independent bookstores? You guys have gotten to spend the day here. I think you probably know the answer now. I think anyone who's been in a really great independent bookstore realizes the minute they walk through the door that it's something special, and realizes the error of their ways and that they'll never go back to online shopping, or that's the hope. But I think there's such a different experience being in an independent bookstore. Often people ask me how I compete with Amazon, and I say that I don't. They're in a completely different game than we are. They are selling a commodity online at a discount. We are offering this incredibly rich, complex experience where people get to come together and discover books and talk about books with people who really love them, and meet authors who they may have grown up reading their books, and connect with other people and be in a space that's really special and has been designed for discovery and escape and entertainment. And where else are you going to find that in today's world? I think it's just such a special experience, and people are missing out if they're shopping online. And by shopping in those independent bookstores, you're giving so much back to the community indirectly by ensuring that these places stay in business, and also ensuring that your dollars, your sales tax dollars, are staying in the community, that your dollars are going to support local jobs and local vendors and all of those things. So I think they're really special. I think everyone should be shopping in independent bookstores, and I think people who don't are just missing out.